Gadambi Mengado, Yundregin Javasamni, Chamso Gule Gavar Chedi, Dachini Yasange Togavandu, Te Yu Chanjuki Simgom, Gavandu, Te Yu Niji Yu Chamba, Te Yu Chabachi Sheshi, Tinsoa, Te Yu Sibjatamji Pamarship, Teshini, Tomrazawe Mati Tina Samne Chambagom, Tedandrava Simji Su Yudubakuna, Yachishirgom, Mishingi Cheva Sambar Tondo Togu. 年长孙这王现在让上学工作人的成就什么做出去前民当地的主动大不听你碰见早晚一面天主年个的没大呗我也不等个
Continuing from where we left off, according to the practical instructions which come from the Kadampa tradition, we use the reasoning by way of cause and result to develop love and these other attitudes. Starting with, I must at all costs achieve Buddhahood. In order to do that, I need bodhicitta. I therefore must generate its cause, which is compassion, and the cause of compassion, which is love. The cause of that is a recollection of the kindness others have bestowed upon me. And in order to have that recollection, I must recognize that all beings have been my parents. And then, considering first of all the kindness of one's mother in this life, give rise to love for her, and then extrapolate that until it includes all beings, all who live, extrapolated gradually in that way. Do not behave in a hypocritical manner so that others will think of you as a good Dharma person. Don't pretend to be a bodhisattva out of the desire to be seen as a good person or out of the hope that you will acquire food, clothing, or fame. Don't be hypocritical.
다 계절도 최초의 바르지냐 심어 혐이 대화성으로면에 전주기 있습니다 경계임이 코웨님이다 레르 챔버차 라디오 이제 코나레 셴비기 삼바 미기네 자와슈비 다시 냠지 셈곰 늘 하버야 계시 대야 나다 심제 탐제 대화 되버 냠 동해면 되버 냠 춘이 러시메 버야 냠 니가래
알았어.
딘디가래 니치리 가래
닥치부이나?
다지부인라 심진의 망보인베 다당 냠발레게 체라 대치를 대제 다상계 통해 심제 탐제 상계는 거버되고 니니 구유점도 멀리비 심도도 캐니해버 대봉전도 다 미제시 심제 강론 지게 달래 신도 제버지비 현대외지 더니 동네 퇴차발란 주버를 저에 삼존이가 현대 코나 제바
To be hypocritical and to seek the name or to call yourself a realized person or a siddha is the root of dual disaster. So therefore, rely upon the remedies for such hypocrisy, contemplation of the difficulty of acquisition of these freedoms and resources, and contemplation of impermanence. Even if you engage in a little bit of virtue or Dharma practice, if you do so with the motivation of achieving the pleasures of a higher rebirth in the next life, this is a direct contradiction of bodhicitta. So therefore, continually recollect the defects of samsara and the results of actions. If you don't give rise to the altruistic intention to benefit others, but remain concerned with your own benefit, you have mistaken the very root of the Dharma. So therefore, it is necessary to exchange yourself for others and to cultivate that. This is especially important. Although you and all beings are equal in wishing for happiness and wishing not to suffer, and are equal in their in nature, you are only one. All beings are many. So therefore, all beings as an aggregate are far more important than oneself. Therefore, give rise to the desire to bring all beings to Buddhahood, having first achieved it oneself in order to be able to do that. And make sure that that is a sincere desire and intention, and not simply something that you understand or think you should feel. In order to gain progress in that, do never treasure oneself and treasure or care more for any single sentient being, no matter who they may be, than you do for yourself. Be willing to undergo prolonged and intense suffering in order to bring about the happiness of any single other sentient being, and be ready to do so with enthusiasm. Have this as an attitude and put it into implementation. In short, in all your thoughts and actions, only be concerned with helping others.
다다라리 겨와 침부치네 랑가 체바디 장라 팸버치 생기 제저와디 전게디 된 유체바디 가라미지 최주 따지면 로산연도 탐제야 현변기선 바시베 차 내가 된게 내가 미가 수바 녀모체를 도와서 정말 대대인도 심적이 미드 바탐제 뒤지 봉 동해 중는 의뢰서 집에 심도 미제와 생기 동해랑 디기 존재 노르완다 계속서 다시 냠레스 미드베 룽아 갤럭시 심제 탐제 디기다 냄으로 말람된 너는 지지랑도 이게 좋은 뭐지 취시세 등지기 님으로 가지고 우나도 우보다 냠도 심제 탐제 동해 디디 탐제 나 오기 나고는 슈디 닝가팀 랑가 통면에 사베게 와다 디바탐제 나고는 깔람지송 심제리지 차례집에 탐제 상계 토바라 삼대가와 곰 나도 끼는 게와 소송은 편집 나고 가와서 동은 동이 동하고 동에게 캠버쇼 제반데 뒤다도 주
Nowadays, although we may engage in slight amounts of virtue, we do it really only for our own benefit. And when someone encourages us to engage in virtue, we think that we're doing it for their sake. Such a mistaken attitude will not get us anywhere. Never mind our Dharma practice. Our every action, whether we are walking, sitting, sleeping, or standing, must be done only with the intention of benefiting others. If we suffer, for example, from illness or the harm from demons or rumors or gossip, or our kleshas increase and so forth, we should accept our suffering and pile on top of it all the undesirable experiences and suffering of all other beings. Whenever we suffer, we should recognize it as the results of our own previous actions and not be too concerned by it or suffer too much over it, but take onto it or add to it the sufferings of others. Whenever we experience happiness or well-being, we should use this, such as our wealth and our influence and so on, for the purposes of virtue, and not remain in a state of neutrality. We should always employ our body and speech in virtue, and should aspire constantly that all beings possess happiness and well-being. In short, whatever we do must be freed from the snare of selfishness. And therefore, by doing that, all Dharma must become an actual remedy for self-fixation. When breathing in, think that together with your in-breath, you take into you all the suffering, wrongdoing, and obscurations of all beings without exception, in the form of a black mass, that this enters through your nostrils and dissolves into your heart. When you breathe out, think that all of the virtue you have accumulated throughout beginningless time and all your well-being is breathed out through your nostrils in the form of a brilliant white light, and that each individual sentient being receives a complete set of all of this, such that all achieve Buddhahood. Reflect upon that with joy. In speech, chant, "When happy, I dedicate it to virtue. May space be filled with benefit and joy. If miserable, may the misery of all ripen for me. May the ocean of misery be dried up." Continuously recite that.
치그러야 냠내 생기 말레브롱 동린 튠지다 잔 우그로토버 차 르르나서 섬르 동에 교역하지 경부가 민두버 지중에 현라 큰도 민지바 다진진디 코넬레 냠도 레레랑라다 나다니 파마탐지 로종게 데 디르종에 troyimbe 탐지 끄딘데 체냠도 쌈 랑라 진지메바 생기 고로레베 칙다 저바 미자 추주 군주劝류와다 되는 장승이와 차 생기 쭌미규 쭌통화데 랑이 나와마다버 셰그 미 창주와다 칙주제바 미마인라 장안다와 소게방 랑라파베 차와 가와 셴라 주와다 랑기 강에 셴라 게와서 미자 랑초도 미딘바라 팡가충나 가와다 다시나 릭삼바다 셴라 나사 충나 랑라 니구룽 냠바소 삼바소 태야 미루 감상엔데 미가 토미도소 강라야 마제버 전죽 있음 검시 태야 다다 기수 니지 깨가와는 푸죽수 검
At the time of death, even if you can perform no other practice, if you can die while practicing Tonglen or try to die while practicing taking and sending until your last breath. Whenever you experience physical pain or sickness, mental misery, lawsuits, or loss in business, any kind of disaster or personal loss or anything you don't like, do not blame others or hold a grudge to others. Understand that it is caused by this self-fixation of mine alone, and drive all blames into that or into yourself alone. Understand that all other beings, enemies, friends, and those in between, are all supports for mind training. They're all your friends in that they give you opportunities for the purification of wrongdoing and obscurations. So therefore, continually reflect upon their kindness. Don't ever speak or act in such a way that others will think that you are more free from self-fixation than you are. Make sure your every action is as pure, is in accordance with the Vinaya and utterly pure and free from hypocrisy. Don't speak of others' faults. If you see something wrong with someone, recognize it as your own impure projection. Don't push other people's buttons or speak harshly to them. Don't recite forceful mantras to afflict non-humans. Don't transfer to others difficult responsibilities that have naturally fallen to you. Don't place your heavy burdens on the shoulders of another. Don't delight in the defeat or loss of those you dislike. Don't think, oh, I wish my enemies would die. Don't think, oh, if this person gets ill, I might get something out of it, and so on. Such thoughts are utterly inappropriate. without paying any attention to whether your health is good or not, or how you feel about what is said about you. Cultivate bodhicitta no matter what. And especially emphasize cultivating bodhicitta, focusing on those for whom it is hard for you to feel compassion, such as enemies and obstructors.
Chöla ngeshe mebe reche remiche bade bang chö nyamso lembra randuen ibi kache chizamche ye shena yuche me chong chengzhu ma pab dingdong kongzhu so chebala lemiche ba niji bashi gom chungse zamla gammige namgyur medyo rangla nöba chamo misöji shena pemba chamo metoana semgewe tyonggo torwe dashin jewa tabgegi kebar labo shimbi duri tuwe nyamlen chao.
Abandon sporadic practice that results from lacking real certainty about Dharma. Remember that all your Dharma practice is ultimately for your own good, so therefore don't be proud of your austerity in practice. Don't try to get revenge for others pushing your buttons or denigrating you or even beating you. Cultivate compassion alone in response to these. Don't display joy and disappointment over little things. If you are unable to put up with even the slightest harm and unable to bring even the slightest benefit to others, you've lost the whole meaning of generating bodhicitta. Therefore, understand that exchanging oneself for others is the greatest possible skillful means, and practice it with the earnestness of rock hitting bone.
semgeba zongi diweso padu mebe chang gewanam semedo pe kange chini singam rimbuchi kane sange tamjela rereshin pyuwa le chanjuk isem geje mi sonam chawaso pe padu mebe ne meumagwe che tamjegi ningbuin bichiru.
Merely generating bodhicitta will purify countless previous wrongdoings and cause your other virtues to increase inexhaustibly. It is of more benefit to give rise to bodhicitta there is more merit in giving rise to bodhicitta even for a single moment than there would be in offering to each and every Buddha there is a realm, as many realms as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges filled with jewels. Therefore, understand that the benefits of bodhicitta are truly inexpressible because it is the quintessence of all Dharma.
Tena pöru chindu su chenju sembe jeba tham niji konarin jo dajang shadang dizam gom sarwam dungewe simjiji le nire je sewa zammeba chongme rimi gen roale niji sembe dado kyabra labra chawa.
Therefore, since all of the deeds of a bodhisattva and their training, such as the 6 perfections, arise from compassion, don't reckon your practice by thinking, I have meditated for this many months or this many years and so forth, days and so forth. And don't merely limit your compassion to saying, oh, how deserving of compassion when you see one suffering being. Continuously cultivate a great compassion that embraces all beings impartially.
Ya rengyu min bechir rengi gewe chwa thamjela laba gewa chudu gi chirimda semjen min bechir shenda khangla khansum gi gewa drubdo shoba semjen tunji gi chirim yela chanju sembe domba thamjem doshi nibun dele chiriban drubdo rungshin mijena chanju sembe nyebar songwe qabsu khangbab gi geza range drub shela kuma cha nariri chokbar jini gengen mi dobe nyamyong mangmo la shem zamla shemba ne gyawe surubda thambe namdar matwe be gyendu sedo.
In order to ripen your own being, cultivate all aspects of virtue. This is the moral discipline, which is the accumulation or cultivation of virtues. In order to ripen the streams of other sentient beings, encourage others to perform virtue appropriate to them as individuals. That is the moral discipline of benefiting other sentient beings. All of the training of the Bodhisattva vow, all of the commitments of the Bodhisattva vow are included in these two. But if, when you are in a position to accomplish one or the other of these two, and you do not do so, that is said to be a violation for a bodhisattva. So therefore, whenever you can, practice or cultivate virtues yourself and exert others to do so. Don't be content with a single virtue or a single type of virtue, and don't be attached to a vague or obscure experience that will not withstand adverse conditions. To be attached to such and to be content with only partial virtue is evidence of having not studied the Buddha's teachings or the lives of our forebears.
야, 다 되게 주부체. 다 되게 달루셰고 하고 되는 거죠. 잠들다 섬계기. 티디 주부체.
So that completes the instruction on refuge and bodhicitta, which is the principal teaching for this year.
다 되네. 다 되리 간다. 가수베지 말람기 원주기 다 송주선을 취시해야 돼. 말한 거지. 휴비 취를 채버려. 얘는 다 가장 공도 쉬변시. 엔더리기 가수 원주 최들이야. 다 가다 조치셔디. 다 가장 공도 쉬변시. 아주 다리 당하는 된 좀대바 상으로지 상기 대바지 준비게 가사임바래. 라도 중앙에 있는데 김복공에 있는데 상상이 대바지 가사임바래. 다 상기 대바지 못해 사야돼. 상기 대바사들이야. 상기 대바사디 심지지 누루이바래. 지누루임. 지 누루. 상기스 마란조 데 짐밤 다데 니르반도 차. 니르반도 다 꼬르다스는라도 니르바스는라도 다 되는 아주 차대. 니르바.
So that completes the teaching on the Ngondro for this year's Manlam. Of greatest importance is that all of us here, whether we are monastics or lay people, are here because we are followers of the Buddha Dharma. And the Buddha's teachings are the common jewel of all beings. That is to say, we who follow those teachings are really custodians or keepers of them.
제가 상계기 때문에 되네 베베 말에 베베가 not belongs to Tibetan somewhere. 베베가 말에 야가르가 말에 다 간다래 루무수지라 다가 말에 다는 신기 에너지 거규베가 말에 다는 신님어베가 말에 다는데는 녜다 콘슈베는 신디 딘저비다 지 노부디 심장 탐지 다리가 네 뉴산 델이야 는 가족이지 가수에 녜인 코인 저버샤면 아주 랭게데 가랬잖아 딘저비기다 심지지 노부디 아주 당고야 위ገብ지 때문에 아주 녀버 인상 이 당고야 위ገብ네 되는지 심지지야 심지 탐지를 펜토버지다 심지 탐지야 가수에지 대반주 가서 심지 탐지기 니지기 펜드는 주버지 든지고 왔다 든지 뭐 좋나 저번에 디핑거 만다디 레인주산에 다봉 엄마디 심지 탐지래 아주 녀버래 레인주산에 대규제나 되네 다 도랑 안수역이 다 잡에 상기기 때문에 디 심지지 노루임이 인상 심지지라 펜 강토도르지 디지기 체도 로와데 개좀 브레스 다도 쉬아이 아시 나가는 심지 쉬아스 게민도 다시고들이야 사실은 좀 뭐체 비위대 만남지 소잖아 이런 바지 저기 유사라 엔터링 공단에 지주 진진이 바래 레주산 참에 다망부지 쉬고야스 게민도 참에 툴이야 킹거를 딱 간다 지 네다 두다 딱 간다 간지탄 차례 배지 가르로 자천부 인예벌 가와들 차리 위인도 참에 딱 강차자 나로 지쉬야마도 당을 미세 잠자지기 쉬하스케민도 인디주 조사 강도 지진 자통도 이래 렌드산에 저저 쳐야 돼 계치거래 쉬야인
The Buddha Dharma does not belong to Tibetans or to Indians or to the people of any single country. It does not belong to Gajupas or Nyingmapas or to the adherents of any single lineage. It belongs commonly to all beings. We can therefore not carve up the Buddha Dharma into ours and theirs or anything like that. As its custodians, it is our responsibility to preserve it so that it be of actual benefit to beings, so that it actually contribute to the happiness and welfare of all beings. If we fail to do that, then argument or debate is irrelevant. As custodians of the common possession of all beings, it is really important that what we have custody of be available to help all those beings. Please keep this in mind. I don't think there's any need for me to say much more. We will conclude, as usual, with the Mahamudra aspiration and the others. And no Mahamudra aspiration. We will not conclude, as usual, with the Mahamudra aspiration. And but with the aspiration for the well-being of Tibet. And finally, I urge you, I know you're probably anxious to have tea, but please make the most of this place and this opportunity. La.
Oh, yes. The Tzu will start in the afternoon. No? Actually, it's not Tzu, but the pre-Tzu. So will start in the afternoon. That's why I think everybody understand. It's very, maybe all understand it's very important and very significant. That's why I think you need to try your best, and maybe now is the time for tea. It's not time for my, meaningless talk. Thank you.